All right. Thank you so much. Buenos Aires. I hope you're all doing well. The pandemic has been rough, so I really appreciate you taking the time, to be here. I hope you're doing well, you're staying safe, and you're taking care of yourself. I'm going to be talking today about exploring UX research as an engineer. I'm Snigdha, experience researcher at Google. I currently focus on improving advertiser experiences with YouTube ads. Before this, I also spent some time improving, viewer experiences with YouTube ads. I started off as a UX. I'm currently a UX researcher, but I didn't really start off as a UX researcher. So my road to research has not been as linear, and I've really enjoyed the whole ride. I incidentally started coding really young. When you actually get this brand new computer, you're trying to figure out. Your parents tell you to fix it, and you just go knock on it, and suddenly somehow it gets better. I started exploring. I was really enthralled by how I could fix my computer, and I was really, happy about the fact that I could code. And I started to experience coding early on. I ventured into building websites, learned Java early on, and I figured out this is what I want to do, right? I want to grow up and be an engineer. And so I enrolled for a bachelor's in computer science, just learning the lay of the land, understanding, all the different subjects. I discovered that there were so many areas you could specialize in, and it wasn't good enough to just say, hey, I know Java or I know HTML. And as I started to explore this, I took on some engineering roles to learn about what area I'd be, doing well in. I discovered at this point of time that, I could code, but if I could code well is a question. And I learned that there's a distinction between coding and coding well. And there's a lot of effort that needs to be put in underway. There's just so many technologies. Where do you start to specialize in? And as you grow up the ladder, there's just so much more to consider, right? Like system design, a whole spectrum of things, and technologies to be familiarized with. And so around the same time, I discovered that there was this traction in understanding the whole world of data, data science, data analytics, business intelligence. That whole space was really starting to getting interesting for me. And then back in the day, the only two tools that were very well known were R and Python. So I kind of taught myself R and Python so that I could get into understanding data better, just wrangling data better, and getting to insights faster. And this also prompted me then to enroll for a master's where I was focusing on data science, really trying to get into doing a good job of analyzing data. And along that line, that's where the pivot really happened for me. I started to discover human computer interaction, which is just this whole space that's a combination of machine learning, a combination of programming, a combination of user experience. And long story short, I discovered that it's a space that I really enjoyed because I was also understanding the why behind a lot of the, like why are people behaving a certain way, and why am I building the code to perform a certain certain activity, for instance. And that led to me then focusing on becoming a research scientist, just focusing in this area of innovation that's addressing machine learning and HCI. And post that, I decided to absolutely pivot towards doing UX. And so why did I make this pivot, right? Like I started with coding. I somewhere down the line discovered that, there was also some scope or some excitement in like understanding data, understanding behaviors. The reason is I could see that there were certain behaviors occurring, and I really wanted to understand why people were behaving in a certain way. And it felt like that was the missing piece tying everything up for me. However, this was my journey. I think your road to research could look significantly different. How could you get yourself from coding if you're currently like an engineer? How could you get yourself, from being a PM to UX research, or from being an SRE? Your road will may or may not look similar to what mine is, but it's worthwhile to think about what you'd like your road. Along the way, as you discover, you will see things that you like, you'll see things that you don't like. It's important to take note of them or be cognizant of what kind of experiences you're liking as you explore this whole space of UX research, right? And going into, before we step into like actually understanding UX research, it's worthwhile to look at what makes for a good engineer, right? And so if you want to drop in a couple of notes on chat, I'll give a couple of seconds out here. If you consider yourself a good engineer, or you work with some great mentors or colleagues who are engineers, if you can think about what are those characteristics and type them in chat. Let me know who you think represents a good engineer. uh, we'll give it a couple of seconds. Great. So I see Serena saying who manages soft skills and tech skills. Give it a couple of more seconds. All right. Somebody who listens to all parties. Valid point. Very important. Somebody who does good research. Excellent points. And I did some of this homework myself as well. Who can adapt to an unexpected situation? Yes, that's right. I did some homework, and I think some of these answers fit into these buckets. I asked a couple of friends, I asked a couple of colleagues who can understand design and not just individual tasks, who's customer focused. It's awesome. So a couple of characteristics stood out. One is that a good engineer is really analytical. They're thinking well, they're thinking ahead to what are some functionalities that you want now? How do you see this, scaling? They're really focused on understanding like the overall picture. They're curious. They're asking a lot of questions. They're asking, they want to know more about what they're designing, who they're designing for, and how something's going to be used. They're asking a lot of questions of stakeholders to get to the right solutions. They're also innovative. A good engineer is always thinking about how to creatively solve a problem. You could be dealing with constraints. You could be dealing with, different kinds of users who expect multiple functionalities. You're thinking about how do I get this feature working with, low latency, and you're always thinking about innovative ways to solve a problem. You're also meticulous. You don't want to, leave any edge case unturned. You want to make sure that you're covering all these edge cases, all the boundary conditions. You're being thorough. And sort of in line with that is you're organized. Whether you're going agile, whether you're, following a much more, like a waterfall model, for instance, whatever your strategy is, you're organized. You know what needs to be done. You know, for the most part, when it needs to be done, and more importantly, when a bug arises, you know that it needs to be solved immediately. Yeah. And so, if a good engineer has all of these characteristics, let's now think about what a good researcher is. How many of you have, interacted with a researcher, is considering research, or, has someone in their company who does UX research? And now think about, what makes them good, or what could have made them good experiences with a UX researcher. And what do you think some of those characteristics could be? And if I look back to some of the feedback that I've received, who does good research, who adapts well, who's customer focused, who's thinking about creating for users first. Would it surprise you if I told you that a good researcher, a good UX researcher, has all of the same characteristics that a good engineer perhaps has? A good PM will also have these same characteristics. So, and I don't want to be general here, but it is true. Like all of us use these skills on a day-to-day basis, or on a weekly basis, as we decide to solve different problems. So then what makes the difference, right? Like what changes the tasks we do, apart from design versus coding? What boils down to in this whole situation is the kind of questions that we're trying to answer. So we all are using the same qualities on a day-to-day basis. We're just tackling different questions. And so what do we mean by and I like to think about and adapt, Simon Sinek's framework. This is from his book Start with Why. If you haven't read this book, I think it's a great book to read, irrespective of where you are in your journey. Whether you want to continue coding, whether you want to pivot towards research, wherever you are, and whatever you do, I think it's a great book to read because it talks about questions that define good leadership, right? And you can be a leader in whichever role you choose to be. But I try to adapt, the golden circle framework that they talk about, and the framework's really focusing on these three basic questions, right? And if you think about that in the lens of a product, these questions become, what is the product we're building? How are we building this product? And why are we building this product? Right. And these are three questions. I'm going to take a step here next and try to map the kind of role to these questions. So let's start with the what. What are we building? Usually, this is a good question that product management stakeholders are interested in and are most likely held accountable for. This is not to say they don't focus on the why or the how, but they're the ones responsible for the most part, or they're the primary ones that are answering all the questions around the what, defining what the product is. Now let's focus on the how. This is an out and out software engineering ownership. Like we're really focusing on how is the specific thing being built, how do we think about this product when we cater to 50 users versus 500,000 users. And then the next question then becomes, why are we building this product? Like, why does a user behave a certain way with the product? And this is where the user experience research team comes into play oftentimes, just helping us connect the what and the how with the why, right? And so now we look a little bit into what a UX researcher does on a day-to-day basis. And so those could be these following things. The first is really focusing on needs. We want to understand who are the users and what are their needs and their goals, and how does a product fit into these needs and goals. The next is motivation, right? Why are user needs the way they are? Like, what is influencing them to need something? What is influencing them to take a certain action? And understanding these motivations can then help us understand what kind of behaviors they're engaging in or should engage with respect to a product, and also why are they engaging in certain behaviors. So, as the best way to summarize what a UX researcher does is focusing on user needs, focusing on what motivates these needs, and then subsequently how we can design for those needs and motivations, and also why they behave a certain way that they do when accounting for these needs and motivations. When we talk about research, there's also different kinds of research, and I'll try to be as concise as I can as I explain this, right? So the first is qualitative research. This is really focused on questions like, what are the users doing? Why are they doing what they're doing, right? And some of the ways you can think about questions around qualitative research is you'll see a lot of like verbal data, you'll see a lot of visual data, like you'll see recordings, you'll see audio recordings, video recordings, a lot of text, for instance. And you have to observe. Your primary job is to observe, you're to ask the right questions and to learn. Some of the ways you can do this are through interviews. These are fairly commonly heard of. There are focus groups where you're talking to more than one user in a group setting. And then there's also qualitative usability testing, for instance. This is not a comprehensive list of methods, but this is just an example. And there are a lot of researchers who just specialize in qualitative research. They're really good at what they do. They focus on a set of these methods. They're really digging into, they do what they do. Typically, you see researchers, coming into this with backgrounds that are very diverse, coming in from like a background of psychology, marketing, human resources. You see people coming in from, sociology, coming in from computer science. There's a whole spectrum, and that goes for all of the other sort of spaces in UX research as well. So the next space is quantitative UX research. So we know why they're doing what they're doing. We know how they're behaving, what their mental models are. But we may also want to know how many users are engaging in a certain behavior. How often are they engaging in a certain behavior? And this is just a spectrum of questions, but broadly they fall into this bucket, right? And here you're looking at a lot of numeric data, sometimes even textual data that requires, that one person can't just read through and info, right? There could be logs data that has like thousands and thousands of records. Your goal is to analyze, your goal is to predict, your goal is to experiment with quantitative research. You could do things like log analysis, you could run complex surveys where you're minimizing bias, you're figuring out how to get the effective responses from the right set of groups. And then there's also quantitative usability testing, which is, more than understanding who faces a certain problem, we want to understand how many of them face a certain problem with our product. And you see quantitative researchers again coming in from a diverse set of fields, some coming from computer science, some coming from, information management, some coming from areas like data science, data analytics, business intelligence. There's a whole spectrum that come in again. These are just examples of the people that I've worked with and their background. Some people coming from cognitive science, for instance. And so this is another interesting area where you're working with a lot of data on a day-to-day basis. And then finally, you have the third bucket, which is mixed methods research, which is looking at answering questions that require a combination of qualitative and quantitative research, which is we want to know how or why somebody is behaving a certain way, and then we want to know how often we see this behavior, across participants in our products. And this could really mean when you're looking at a complete picture, you have a combination of data sources to derive insights from and a lot of people to talk to. Here are some examples of the kind of studies you could run. For instance, you could pair usability testing with follow-up interviews. That would be, like understanding how many people are exhibiting a certain behavior, and then asking them why they're behaving in a certain way. You could also do surveys. That could be a quant heavy work, and then once you understand broader trends, you could do focus groups, for instance. Or then you could do card sorting. I won't get into the details of what exactly card sorting is, but it's definitely an interesting topic if you ever wish to explore. And so with these three buckets being which bucket you like the most. To be fair, that's a question that I haven't been able to answer myself. I bucket myself as a mixed methods researcher. That's because I absolutely can't choose whether I want to stick to doing qualitative or quantitative research. But I would say you can feel free to be anywhere within that spectrum of qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methods. And I think this is a journey to explore, and I'm continuing to do it. So now let's talk about, now that you're considering hopefully UX research, what are some skills that you may already have up in your bag or up your shelf that you could actually translate? So let's talk about mapping what you already know, right? Analytics, one thing that we talked about is being very analytical. You're coding, you're doing a lot of analysis, you're doing, perhaps you've explored machine learning. These are all characteristics that are really, really important. They play a huge role in quantitative UX research. So if you know all of these, you're already halfway there with quantitative research. The next is curiosity. We talked about asking the questions being a great trait of a good engineer. Asking the right questions is definitely the hallmark of being a good qualitative researcher. You need to ask the right questions that are not biased, that get you to the right answers from the participants. Innovation. I think with UX research, there's always circumstances around finding the right group of people, adjusting with the scenarios that you're set up with. And so experimenting with different solutions while accounting for constraints is a very valuable skill that you'll see can get you really far ahead in UX research. And then meticulousness, just accounting for all of the edge cases and scenarios. That goes both ways as you're considering qualitative or quantitative research. You want to ensure that you're talking to the right people, and that's where all of this comes into play. And you want to ensure that you're experimenting in the right way. And then finally, organization. Time is of essence, and dearth. To be very careful about planning. You need to account for the fact that there could be delays in situations where things are not in your control. You need to always plan, and you need to prepare for the fact that there could be delays, which means you need to make sure that you're communicating effectively. So these are some skills that you already have. So you're already almost there. Let's talk about some skills that you can pick up on, right? Here are some additional skills that are really crucial as you consider UX research as an area for you to explore. The first is listening. It's very important for someone to listen. And if you have been paying attention to this session up until now, great, you're already there on this bucket. You need to be really interested to learn, and you should be able to listen carefully to learn. A lot of the role of a UX researcher is about listening and then understanding when to follow up, right? And so listen closely, listen well, because there may be things that could be like small comments that you could catch up on that could lead you to the solutions that you're looking for. Empathy, it's very important to put yourself in the user's shoe. When you're talking to users, the user is never ever wrong is something that we think about as research. So if they're not using a feature in the way you want them to, then chances are that you perhaps not accounted for everything that they're experiencing. And so if there's something going wrong, then it's on us to fix whatever is going wrong. The user's never wrong. And then finally, awareness. See, as humans, all of us have some biases as we interact and go about our daily life. It's important when we do research to not let these biases creep in. More importantly, it's important for us to be aware. We can't absolutely shield ourselves from being biased, but it's important to understand when we're being biased. And with UX research, some of these biases are identified. We need to mitigate for them when we're planning, so that we can have fair results with the experimentation that we're doing, or with the research questions we're asking. And finally, it's observation. When you talk to users in UX research, or when you're observing them, there's always something that they're going to be saying, and there's something that they're going to be doing. Sometimes they align, sometimes they don't. Sometimes users try to rationalize what they're doing. It's important for us to observe both what they're saying as well as what they're doing. And then finally, we really need to understand what makes a design good or bad. Again, you do not have to be Picasso. You don't have to be the best artist there is. It's just a design, just understand and learn about why a design is good, why a design is working, and why a design is not working, right? So with these characteristics being things that you should perhaps look at exploring, you may have made some progress or a lot of progress on all of these. I'm still going to leave you with some ways to gather some of these skills, right? Here's how you could try bridging the gap. And these are some, you probably have some of these options available. Sometimes you'll have to work a little hard to get these options available, right? So the first is to observe. This is one of the easiest things you do. If you can have, research studies that are already, available to you in your company, try and volunteer to just sit and take notes, listen to how questions are being asked and how responses are being given to those questions. Just take notes and then compare with the researcher to see if you've captured it the same way. This will also help you explore any biases that you may have. And then listen carefully. The next time you go into a meeting, try and pivot from explaining what you're going through to maybe listening to what somebody else is thinking about. Think about their point of view and pay attention to how your stakeholders are expressing their concerns. Each person has a different way of expressing it, and just being aware of how they express concerns is really, really valuable and a great learning lesson. And then finally, ask. Focus on identifying the right questions you want to ask the next time you're interacting with someone. You want to ask the questions that get you the most information. And remember to not bias your questions. You do not want to ask, oh, is chocolate your favorite food to eat? You want to ask, what is your favorite food to eat? When, if I can go a step ahead, when you're feeling sad or when you're feeling happy. So ask the questions that can get you to the right answers. And then finally, learn. You can read about a lot of the UX research methods. You can learn about some basic principles of UX design, things that design when they're looking at defining a good experience for your products. And then participate, try and volunteer your time for a design sprint, for instance. Collaborate with your design stakeholders. Volunteer to perhaps co-lead a research project or co-lead a session or a user interview to just get the experience. And then finally, look at diversifying. We talked about those 3 buckets of UX research, qualitative, quantitative, or both. Try and explore which bucket you feel most comfortable with, which gives you joy as you experience that bucket. There are some questions I get asked typically, so I'll try to put them out there already and see if I can answer them. Do I miss coding? Honestly, I don't, because like I mentioned, I also do quantitative projects. That means every day or every week, I'm still coding. I'm still trying to get to understanding and crunching data to see characteristics and doing that effectively. So I don't miss coding. Do you need really strong design skills? I don't have any strong design skills. You need to learn about what makes a design good or bad, like I was mentioning. But again, I'm no artist, and I don't think as a researcher you're expected to be fantastic at design. Where can I learn more about UX research? I'm glad you asked. I thought no one would ask, but here are some options. I haven't met any of them. These are actually books and sources that I've learned through and I've really enjoyed. The Design of Everyday Things can give you a great understanding about how to step into that mode of thinking about design. It's by Don Norman. And then there's more about UX research, which are the second and the third books that you see. They're fantastic. And then finally, there's this website, which is the Nielsen Norman Group. That's where a lot of like fundamental information about methods, about emerging strategies can be there. Thank you so much. That was about everything I had to share.
Thank you very much, Snigdha, for your talk. It was really interesting. And we have some questions from our attendees. I'm trying to make you some questions, but we have just 2 minutes. So because we have other panels then. So Chiara asks, have you had in your career, or do you have right now any role models who inspires you?
Mm-hmm. Got it. So I would say I had this one professor that I really look up to, and he's written a lot of wonderful books. His name is Ben Schneiderman. I can drop his name in the chat a little later on. That's somebody I really follow a lot. There's someone in this space we'll call Elizabeth Churchill. She's wonderful to look up to. And in general, I think having a good role model, it's a lot about understanding which vertical you want to stick to in terms of the spectrum, and then figuring out. I'd say Twitter is a great source. And then the second way to explore is to look at emerging conferences like CHI and look at research that really calls out to you and reach out to those professors for advice.
Thank you very much. Last question, only 1 minute. Is it possible to have the slide later on? Can we have, and then maybe send with the follow-up email, or no?
I can double check on that, and I'm sure that should be possible, and I can work with you, Michaela, and work on getting it.
Yeah. Amazing. So thank you very much, Snigdha, for being here, for your time and for your talk.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for being a good audience.
Thank you.